Welcome to All Pro Football Data. My name is Jim Coburn, and today's episode we're talking about NFC North data-based power rankings. So today's episode we'll be discussing the NFC North and who the top teams are in the conference based on data. Now, the rankings are based on past approximate value performances of the roster, free agency additions, database grades of the incoming rookies, and the age of the roster. So for all the people that are asking, where does the data come from? I just mentioned it. It's approximate value data, which is from Pro Football Reference. It's everything to do with that is there. So if you don't know what approximate value scores are, you can go to Pro Football Reference. As far as the database grades of the incoming rookies, you can check out my top 50 prospects video, which I have a link in the description. You can check out that video, and that'll go over my database grades in general in terms of pre-draft profiles of the prospects. And then, of course, the age of the roster data is again from Pro Football Reference. So if you want to know where all this data comes from, it's from all of those sources. And again, if I just went over every single detail of it, this would be probably a 2 hour long video. So we're just going to look at the general rankings of. If you want to know more about the stuff that I do, you can go to my Patreon page at patreon.com/jcoburn. But with all this stuff out of the way, let's get to the list. So first off, at number 4, we have the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings had a lot of offseason changes on offense and on defense that will radically change the team's future. So one example, Kirk Cousins, of course, no longer there. Daniel Hunter, who probably was their best pass rusher over the last maybe half a decade, is also not there anymore. So this is going to be a very different team with those guys not there. However, the selections of J.J. McCarthy and Dallas Turner should help them in the transition. However, 2024 is shaping up to be a year of growing pains. So even though they did make selections that have the potential to be better than Kirk Cousins, and maybe even on par with Daniel Hunter in terms of Dallas Turner, they still are going to have some shakiness this year, which would make them the fourth best team in the division. Taking a look at their offensive data, their quarterback that they have right now in JJ McCarthy, and the backup situation they have there makes them the 10th best roster in terms of overall depth at the quarterback position. At number 18, the running back position is 18 out of 32 teams. The wide receiver position is 22 out of 32. Main reason why, it's not so much about Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson, who are great individual wide receivers. It's the overall depth of the wide receiver group. So once you go past Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, what do you have? And what they have is not a lot of depth from a data perspective, from how they performed in the past to how they might perform in the future based on their pre-draft profiles. So overall, the wide receiver group is not that strong once you leave those two prospects, because that is what true depth at the position is the depth behind the two starters. And then, of course, you look at the tight end position, which is 8 out of 32 teams. Skill talent wise, they would be average, so average skill talent overall when you look at the overall depth. And then offensive line wise would be 10. So they have a fairly strong offense. Based on their overall data, they were 11 out of 32 teams in terms of their overall offensive depth. But when you go to the defensive side of the football, this is the biggest area where they made a lot of missteps. I don't even know if I want to say missteps, but they have a lot of growing up to do in terms of the defensive department, because the edge position is 29 out of 32 teams in terms of the starters that they have right now, in terms of their data, in terms of the rookies, the backups, all that kind of stuff. They're 29 out of 32. Defensive tackle position is 20 out of 32. Linebacker is 24. 26 is the cornerback position, and the safety position is 20. The overall defensive ranking based on data would be 32 out of 32 teams, which would make them one of the worst defenses in terms of longitudinal quantitative data for quantitative data purposes. So based on that information, that's the only concern. And yes, they do have individual prospects that I think are going to do well. You know, Dallas Turner, I believe, is going to become a decent edge rusher for them long term. But the rest of the roster, they have a lot of stuff they need to add. A lot of players there are also older. So, you know, Harrison Smith, for example, was a great safety 5 years ago, but now at his age where he's at, he may not be as productive as he used to be in the past because of his age. So those are also some concerns there. But this is why the Vikings are four in terms of this division, is that they have a lot of rookies coming in. They have a lot of issues on defense in terms of overall depth. And the general offense is decent, but again, you have a rookie coming in, and you have a guy in Sam Darnold who is, you know, 50-50 at best in terms of what you're going to get there. Then, of course, at number 3 on this list, we have the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are number 3 for a variety of reasons, and the thing is, they're very close. So when I did my overall data rankings for these teams, the Packers were 11 out of 32 teams in terms of their overall depth in the NFL. The Bears were 7 out of 32 teams, and then the Lions were 6 out of 32. So based on that information, I mean, there's not a big difference between these teams. They're all very strong football teams, and they all could potentially win the division. It's just that there's better overall data with the Lions and the Bears, which is why they're ranked where they're ranked. But in terms of the Packers this year, they are the ultra sexy pick to win the NFC North title this year. They have the quarterback in Jordan Love that everybody likes. He had a really good season last year. Of course, they blew out the Cowboys in the playoffs. But there are some concerns about Jordan Love's ability to remain consistent in another year of starts under his belt. Because keep in mind, he's only played one full season of football as a starter for a team. So you don't really have a large enough sample size to kind of see exactly what you have consistently. And as you know, in the NFL, it stands for not for long. And Jordan Love's data in terms of his pre-draft profile, in terms of what he's done early on, makes him a little bit skeptical to kind of repeat. So if he does continue his performance from last year this year, it will bump up his data and make him look a lot better. But he's kind of the weak link just because of that lack of experience in terms of his overall data. The Packers will have a top 10 defense in 2024, which I think will help them out a lot, which can be kind of the secret sauce to an NFC North title. However, overall, when you look at the general data of the Packers, they have a strong team. They really do. So taking a look at that, so in general, with this team on offense, they ranked 27 out of 32 teams in terms of the quarterback position. Now, the biggest reason why, as I stated before, was Jordan Love. He has inconsistent data. He's only had one full year of starts, and because of that, it kind of hurts his overall data. So he had a poor pre-draft profile, and then on top of that, he only had one full season of starts. That's going to kind of hurt his data overall. So another year of information could improve this, but until that happens, this is kind of how things shake out. But despite that issue, the Packers still have a strong offense. So at the running back position, they're 16 out of 32. Wide receiver is 5 out of 32. Tight end position 16. Skill talent overall would be 11 out of 32 teams. And then offensive line would be 12 out of 32s. And the overall offensive rank for them would be 17 out of 32 teams in terms of their overall data. Now, if Jordan Love improves upon last year and does even better, I think this would kind of make them into a top 10 offense. It really would. But until that growth is there, at least consistency, which is the biggest thing, there's still going to be kind of a question mark here that maybe last year was a bit of a fluke. We still have to see because Jordan Love's pre-draft profile was not the best, and we just have to see another year to kind of see if he's going to be consistent in it. Now, when you get to the next part of this, which is the defensive side of the football, the Packers are also really decent in terms of this particular area. Their edge and defensive tackle position are probably the weakest links for them. A lot of that comes down to a lot of the players they drafted haven't lived up to their potential yet. So guys like Lucas Van Ness, for example, his value last year wasn't the best. Again, he had flashes as a rookie, but his consistency as a starter hasn't really come in yet. And he's another player that had a little bit of an inconsistent pre-draft profile because of a lack of production in college. Now, if he improves tremendously this year, becomes a full-time starter, and has 10 plus sacks, this will help these numbers out tremendously. But that hasn't happened. Again, a lot of these rankings are based on the consistency as much as the potential. And there are some inconsistencies in terms of the Packers defense at edge and defensive tackle. But the linebacker position, the cornerback position, the safety position, all of those areas are so high, it still makes the Packers into a top 6 overall defense in terms of their overall data at the NFL level. So they're going to have a very strong defense in 2024. That coupled with an offense that has the potential to be a top 10 offense. Where I'm going with this is you could easily see the Packers being the top team in the division. But again, it comes down to a lot of things from a consistency standpoint. So again, probability is not certainty. Probability is just your best guess based on overall data and based on the information and the numbers that you have in front of you. So from a probability standpoint, the Packers have the best chance, probability wise, to be the third best team, but that still doesn't prevent them that if some things happen here or there, if the ball bounces a certain way here or there, if players come in being more consistent this year than they have in the past, they easily could be the top player in the division. But again, it all comes down to what those players do this year because they have not shown to be very consistent in terms of their college careers or at the NFL level just yet. Then we get to number 2 on this list, which is the Chicago Bears. The Bears are the most improved team in the NFL based on data. The Bears will boast probably one of the best offenses in the NFL with Caleb Williams, and the defense will be average. That's right, I said average. We're going to get into the ranks there. But the only thing that could make this prediction not come true comes down to the learning curve of Williams as a rookie. So, with him being a rookie, most rookie quarterbacks typically struggle in their first year. It's not all sunshine and rainbows, and oftentimes a quarterback who goes number 1 overall is going to a team that is not that great to begin with. However, the Bears are not exactly a number 1 overall team in terms of wins and losses. They were a losing team, yes, but the pick that they inherited was through a trade with the Carolina Panthers that gave them that number 1 pick. So this team is not as bad as everybody thinks they are. Even though he is a number 1 overall pick, he's actually going to a lot better of a situation compared to other rookie quarterbacks. So starting with some of those areas as we get to the rank. When you look at the team-based ranks on offense, Caleb Williams, based on his pre-draft profile, based on his overall data, he would probably be a 16 out of 32 team quarterback. So an average quarterback on the Bears, which is saying a lot because they've had a below average quarterback for a very long time at the position. So they instantly improved that position by getting Caleb Williams. Next to that, they have a 7th best running back depth in terms of their overall data there. On the wide receiver position is 3 out of 32 teams. I mean, you have DJ Moore, you have Keenan Allen, and then on top of that, you have Rome Odunze. So again, when I talk about wide receiver depth, that is what I'm talking about. All 3 of those wide receivers, and Keenan Allen is a number 1 wide receiver. He legitimately can be a number 1 wide receiver for any NFL team. Then you add in the second factor, which is DJ Moore, who's another player that can be a number 1 wide receiver for any individual team. And then you add in Rome Odunze, who, based on his pre-draft profile, could be a number 1 wide receiver on any given team. So you have 3 incredible players on one team. That is great wide receiver depth. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about wide receiver depth. So that's one reason why there's a lot of positives here. This is a really great situation for a rookie quarterback to end up in. On top of that, you look at the tight end position. They're 10 out of 32 teams. Again, Cole Kmet is not the best tight end ever. I mean, he's not like a top 5 tight end in terms of talent, but he is a top 10 at least. He does have that talent. And when you look at the overall skill talent on the Bears, 2 out of 32 teams. Really strong skill talent across the board at the running back position, the wide receiver position, the tight end position. Every position is phenomenal there. And then when you look at the offensive line, yes, are they the best offensive line ever? No, they're about average based on their data, but average is a lot better than what they've been in the past. And a lot of the sacks, I know a lot of people want to blame a lot of the sacks on Justin Fields. Justin Fields had a career just dismal sack rate at Ohio State, and he carried that on into the NFL. So again, I'm not trying to put all the blame on Justin Fields, but a lot of the issues with the offensive line in terms of sacks was not just on the offensive line. Some of it was a quarterback situation. So this is a great situation for him to be in, and I think offensively speaking, this is one of those scenarios where kind of like Cam Newton on the Carolina Panthers in his rookie season, you could see another rookie having 4,000-yard type season with this offense. That's very possible because this is a very strong offensive team, despite the fact that they picked him number 1 overall. And then when you look at the defensive side of the football, as I stated before, they're closer to average here. So the edge position depth is about 22 out of 32 teams. The defensive tackle position is 18 out of 32. Linebacker is 27. Cornerback is 3. And 14 is in terms of the safety position. Their overall defensive rank based on overall cumulative data would be 17 out of 32 teams, which is average. Now, I'm not trying to knock them too hard, but it's just the truth. They really realistically only have about an average defense. They have good individual pieces here and there, but they're not the best overall defense. So the offense is really going to have to help them out a lot in terms of in terms of this aspect. So that's the only issue with the Bears. Again, why they're not number one is the defense is a little iffy to a certain extent from that way. And of course, we get to the number one team in the NFC North, which is the Detroit Lions. So the Lions have the best defense in the NFL based on data. The offense will remain solid as well. I don't see the Lions taking a step back in 2024, but they will face fierce competition in the Bears and the Packers. So, as I stated before, the Packers have the potential to be the best team in the NFC North, but the Lions will have to take some missteps. They'll have to trip a little, stumble a little for that to happen. The Bears have the potential to be the best team in the NFC North as well, but that requires the Lions to have some missteps and some stumbles as well. So when you look at the overall information here, you can see why the Lions were the top team last year. So taking a look at it, when you go to the offensive side of the football, for example, the quarterback position is 20 out of 32 teams. A lot of the reason why the ranking is so low is kind of the age and Jared Goff as a quarterback. He's been solid. He's a very solid quarterback, but he's not exactly, based on data, a top five quarterback. He's not. He's good. He's not great. And because of that, you add in the age factor. He's going to have that issue there. Okay. Then when you look at the running back position, they're about 9 out of 32 teams. Wide receiver is 12 out of 32 teams, and tight end is about 22 out of 32. Not because of Sam Laporta. Again, I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but the fact of the matter is, who do you have behind Sam Laporta? Oh, wait. You don't have anybody behind Sam Laporta based on data. So depth-wise, that is the only concern, because if an injury does happen to Sam Laporta, all that production that you had at that position is gone. So again, this is sort of a weakness on the tight end position for the Lions, is that lack of depth at that position. Now, when you get to the offensive line, they're about 22 out of 32 teams, and the overall offense, based on data, would be 19 out of 32. So this does not discount them. This means that they're sort of a slightly below average offense overall when you look at them from a data perspective. But this is still a pretty strong offense overall when you look at their data. Then when you get to the defensive side of the football, when you look at the edge position, they're 5 out of 32 teams. Their defensive tackle position is 19 out of 32. Linebacker is 18. Cornerback is 1, and then safety is 9. The overall ranks, when you combine them all together and then rank them against all the other teams in the NFL, the Lions would have the best defense in the NFL based on data. So the biggest strength for the Lions really comes down to their defense. It really does. It's really the hallmark of them. It's really where they have the most potential to really set themselves apart in this division. And, when we talked about the Bears having incredible wide receiver talent, and we talked about the Packers also having incredible wide receiver talent, even the Vikings have incredible wide receiver talent. The Lions are built to help that. The Lions have the best cornerback depth in the NFL right now. They have a really strong safety group as well. So when you take a look at all that stuff, they're built to kind of help contain teams like the Packers, to help contain teams like the Bears, and of course help contain teams like the Vikings that can help them move on and win the division title. So based on overall data, the Lions would definitely be the top 10 in the NFC North. There are some, again, question marks in terms of injuries are going to happen. And there's going to be players that if they get injured, then it's going to totally change these rankings. It really is. There's going to be players that end up starting. Players are going to be traded. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to affect these rankings. Again, this is really early rankings for these teams. But it does show you how the teams and how the rosters are constructed right now, that these are all really strong football teams, with the exception of the Vikings, only because of the defensive side of the football. But every one of these teams from the Packers to the Lions to the Bears, has a very strong shot of becoming, a top 10 team in the NFL, if not top 5 team based on their overall talent. So this is a very strong division. This is easily going to be one of the most competitive divisions in the NFL, and I'm just excited to see what happens because this is going to be some really good football here once they go through training camp and do everything else like that. So these are the overall offensive ranks, just to kind of show comparison-wise based on data. When you get to the defensive side of the football, this can kind of show you the differences between these teams as well from a defensive perspective. But this is the NFC North in a nutshell based on data. Let me know in the comment section below if you have any questions about it. I will probably do some more videos in the future, kind of detailing more things, going more in depth in terms of the actual teams, player by player, and based on their schedule as well, to kind of show you some of the individual matchups here or there. But thank you guys so much for watching, and make sure you check out my Patreon page at patreon.com/jcoburn. Check out my Twitter at Geometrics or X account at Geometrics. And also, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.